are recording. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Unique Venues of Manchester, Great Britain now, and our industry insights. I have a fantastic panel of speakers with us today. We have Sarah Thresfall from Brightspace events, Laura Capell-Abra from Stress Matters, Andrew Perolls from Greengage, and Joan Lind from trybooking.com. And kind of this panel really for me represents some of the key areas as an industry that we have got to face, from safety, well-being, sustainability, and technology. I think they're all, as an event industry, things that we need to address, look up, be aware of, and strive forward with. So hopefully today will be nice and insightful. As I always do, because I love a poll, I have a poll which I'd love you to get involved with. It's just to give a bit of an understanding how we're all feeling, and it's not scientific evidence, it's just to get an idea of how people are. So hopefully you should be able to see that now. Just starting really to understand kind of what's your biggest worry at the moment. Is it uncertainty? Is it health and well-being? What's that side of things there? How's your stress levels? We have an expert on well-being and stress management, so it'd be good to know how we're all feeling at the moment. In terms of sustainability, how important is sustainability? So good to know what we think on that side of things. And my final one, which is obviously always a favourite of mine, which team do you sit in? Team live, team hybrid, or team virtual? If we get any votes for virtual, it would be amazing, but I will wait to see the results from that. So I'm going to leave that on throughout the session, and then we can kind of come back to it towards the end and have a quick look at how we all are feeling. Okay, so without kind of further ado, as I mentioned, we've got these fantastic panelists, and I think we're going to start with Sarah. Sarah's going to give an introduction to who she is, what her business does, kind of how she supports our industry, and also kind of how she feels that the impact of the latest announcement, the delay to reopening, is going to have, but also kind of looking a bit further forward about kind of some of the more positive things that we think should be happening in our industry. So Sarah, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I drew the short straw going first, but at least my coffee will still be warm after I finish doing my thing. So yeah, thanks very much for inviting me to speak, Matthew. I'm Sarah Thresfall, and historically am an event director for corporate events looking at logistics to do with everything: exhibitions, conferences, training, incentives, overseas, UK, you name it, I've done it, apart from pharma. It's the only thing I haven't really done. And I was working in the big agencies with loads of different clients in lots of different industries. And then about 6 years ago, set up Brightspace Events as a consultancy company to serve those agencies. So I still working, with event managers and with clients, but with a whole different view of some smaller agencies, different industries, and a real kind of wide range of experience. And then throughout all that time, I was doing risk assessments for these events. So my role was project lead, and risk assessing was part of that role. And then when everything kind of changed for us, I decided not to follow the virtual route. So I'm 100% team live, always have been, and instead focused my efforts on, what could be done legally and safely throughout the pandemic, and then what will happen after, in this vital bit as we come out of it. So I turned the practical experience into health and safety study and certifications, and also then got really detailed and obsessive almost about the guidance, about what we could do, about the legislation, and was able then to consult with my clients who were still doing things. So it was filming. You know, we obviously weren't allowed to bring audiences together, but the bigger virtual events, you know, needed 40 people on set to make them happen. So I was consulting with them and have been consulting on how to make it safe for everybody. So I've kind of operated all the way, well, I started in the summer really of last year, actually with clients, and then went through the whole of the January lockdown working with people. So I think in terms of the positive message is that it's doable, you know, and people can do this, and the guidance is there from the government. The guidance is there from industry, and the experience and the specialists are there to kind of guide people through whatever needs to happen. So in terms of the announcement, what I was been saying to people over the last couple of days is, instead of having the sort of, particularly venues, a bit of a knee-jerk, oh, what's your new dates? Actually, can we make this work? You know, is there something that we can do within the step 3 guidance that actually will still achieve your objectives? Because if it's a business event, according to the government guidance, we can go up to 1,000 people indoors or 50% capacity, or 4,000 outdoors or 50% capacity. So we do need to social distance. We need to be doing table service for food and drink. So they're the biggest impacts on events, obviously, but it's still very doable. You know, if you're willing to be a bit creative about event format or design or agenda, and stagger your groups and think about some more inventive ways to cater receptions and things like that, you can still do events under these conditions. They just need a rethink. So I think, you know, that's how I immediately felt about the announcement, was that I hope people don't just rush and cancel everything. You know, I hope that people use this opportunity to think a bit more if there is a way to do it. And on that kind of same point, the announcement itself, Boris was much more confident than he ever has been that date he's given us is a date. It's not a data-driven date, it's a date. And subject to variant epsilon, or whatever comes after delta, being a really, really bad one that we don't know about yet, you know, that is going to be when the industry reopens properly. And by that, I mean no restrictions on how many people can gather, no kind of limits on what we do indoor or outdoor. The only thing that I do want to kind of make sure people understand is that the social distancing requirement and face coverings and all of the other stuff about one-way systems and signage and communicating to people, and Laura's going to be pleased, mental safety that comes with attending events in a COVID world, that's not part of the restrictions. All of that information and guidance is separate to the legislation that they're going to hopefully, you know, remove. So it could be there's a possibility that, you know, business events have a slightly stricter approach than social stuff. And that's the case now. At the moment, the government advice for social distancing with friends and family is it's your own individual risk assessment. You can hug your friends and family if you want to, but here's some guidance about how to do it safely. If you're at a business event right now, the social distancing guidance hasn't changed. It is still that you should be 2 meters apart or 1 meters with mitigation. So already we have a difference in what's expected of us socially and in business. And that's kind of the same anyway. If I wanted to change this light bulb, I'd stand on my chair, I'd be reaching up with one hand like that, and I'd be changing my light bulb. If I did that in a conference build, the health and safety person would have me, you know, walked off for doing that because I wasn't on the ladder, I haven't had my ladder training, blah, blah, blah. So it's always been different. And I think it is going to still potentially be different. And I think that although at the moment, a COVID risk assessment, I mean, it's a legal requirement at the moment as a specific COVID secure risk assessment. So it could be that instead of it being a separate documentation, it just ends up being folded within your normal health and safety responsibilities. So even if the legal requirement for a COVID assessment is removed, you've still got, as a venue, as an employer, as an organizer, you've still got a responsibility under the Health and Safety at Work Act to keep people safe, and you've still got a responsibility to write risk assessments that cover every hazard. And no matter what happens on the 19th of July, COVID is still a hazard. It's just hopefully not as severe because we don't have that link between cases and death. But it's still a hazard. People are still going to be vulnerable. We do still need to make sure we've considered, what can I do to reduce this risk? And another example that I like to kind of use is food poisoning. You know, if I'm as a planner going to a venue for an event, on my risk assessment is a line that says food poisoning. This is a hazard to my guests. What can I do to reduce that risk? So I write down a little list of things. Well, I'm going to ask the venue if they've got a policy or a hygiene certificate that I can have a look at. Have their chefs all gone through the training that they should do? And I'll be there on site just to make sure that the buffet's not sat there for 3 hours because it's been forgotten about or whatever. But you know, you just put stuff in place to keep people safe. Does it need to be drastically complicated or anything like that? But it needs to be there. And I think for me, that's the message really for COVID security, is that just because the restrictions have gone, it doesn't mean that the responsibility is gone. You know, we still have to keep people safe. And Professor Whitty said it on the briefing that when they open up, they are expecting very high cases. They're prepared for that. The important thing is that the link is being severed between hospitalizations because of vaccination. But you know, people don't want to get vaccinated or they can't get vaccinated. So you will still have people who will be vulnerable to this disease. So I think we will have a responsibility, but it just won't look like it looks now. You know, I think as planners, I'm very used to the analogy of a swan. You know, the organizer who's just smooth on the surface and looks dead calm. So the event will look completely normal, but underneath the surface, there's a ton of work that's gone on with the venue, with the planners, with the suppliers, just to make sure that it's as safe as it possibly can be, you know, and we're not taking unnecessary risks with, you know, transmission and things like that. So, testing is going to be an interesting one in a sort of crystal ball moment. There's nothing in the guidance at the moment that says you have to test or you don't have to test. It's up to individual, you know, planners and risk assessments. But they have included testing at all the pilot events, which I think is quite interesting. And I certainly wouldn't be surprised if there was a possibly numbers related limit, where they say if you're gathering more than X indoors, you need to have some form of testing in place. I can't comment. I don't know. That's my crystal ball. But it's something that I'm keeping an eye on because it's not there at the moment, and I don't know if it will become part of it. But the other thing is what becomes normal. So there's two things. You know, what does the government tell us to do? And what do people want us to do? What do they expect? Again, from that mental safety perspective, they might need the confidence that actually they know they've been tested and everyone else has been tested. And that's what makes them comfortable to come. Or you could have the opposite view. I'm not going to there. They're going to make me get a test. So, you know, it's really interesting to see how that proceeds and where it lands. Because I think that will actually be a big part of whether we do certain things at events anymore. It'll just be reading the room and deciding what is normal. I mean, I'd be quite happy never to shake a hand ever again, having given it a bit of thought about what is actually on people's hands. So ton of sanitizer, let's keep that, please. Hand washing, let's keep that. Maybe not handshaking, you know, I might be going in with the elbow bump for a bit longer, but I think, you know, it's up to, it will become down to your risk assessment and personal choice, but there will be less sort of prescriptive measures, I think, that will come from the government. Is there anything, Mathew, that you were hoping I would cover that I haven't really in that little blurb?
No, I think that covers everything. I suppose my only kind of question at this stage, before we kind of go on to probably questions at the end, is the conversations around the vaccine passport seem to have diminished, and we hope that's gone, don't we?
Yes, I think so. the idea that you have to have had a vaccination has cropped up again in the media for care home workers this morning. So they are going to they're going to make it a legal requirement, apparently, or they're certainly going to debate making it a legal requirement to work in a care home. But to attend an event, I really don't see that. If anything, it would be a double hander. You either show me a test or you show me a double vaccination. And that's not necessarily either about you being safe to come in. It would be about your overall audience being at a low risk of severe harm. If you know that 80-90% of them have had a double vaccination, even if COVID is rife in the audience and it's spreading like wildfire, it doesn't matter, because that percentage of your audience are protected. So it's the sort of consequences versus likelihood balance that you get in risk management.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but hugs is me. You know,
hugs is fine.
You forget handshakes, but if I lose hugs, then I think I'm in trouble. And I suppose the only other point I'd say is that I've done one of your courses, and just to say, for any venue or event planner out there, they are absolutely brilliant, really informative, and certainly, you know, I've done health and safety training before, but this was really nice to just kind of have a real refresher, and kind of really kind of pulls everything that you need to be kind of remembering at this stage, certainly. And obviously I only did the kind of introductory one, but I know you go into much more depth on some of the other ones. So just to say to everyone out there, look out for those. And Sarah is a Bible of information around this stuff. So, you know, please do feel free to follow her on that side of things. So thank you, Sarah. That's brilliant. Moving on to the lovely Laura, if I'll hand over to you.
Just for the record, Matthew, when I see you, I'm going to hug you. So you're straight in there with the hugs. So hi, everybody. I'm Laura Capell-Abra. I am founder of Stress Matters, and I have been in the events industry for a lot longer than I'd like to admit. So it must be nearly 20 years now. And I used to run agencies and kind of got involved in corporate, public, experiential, lots of different types of events. And about 5 years ago, I left because I wanted to work out how we could improve people's well-being in our industry. So initially kind of looking at people development, and how we could support people in this wonderful creative industry in a way that made sense for the way our brains work. But also that led very quickly into managing people's mental health and well-being. And I experienced burnout, and I've experienced burnout multiple times. And a lot of the people I knew had as well. And I had team members going off on sick leave with stress. And it kind of felt to me that there was this thing happening everywhere, but particularly in our industry, from what I could see, that nobody was talking about and nobody therefore was addressing. And so I thought, hang on a minute, I think we need to do something about this, because this is only going to get worse. This isn't just going to suddenly disappear and not be a problem. And obviously, because the experience I've had in the industry, clearly it's a very deadline driven industry. And that's one of the reasons we love the industry for many of us, is that adrenaline that we experience when an event is about to start. And how do you then balance that with the mental health and well-being of our team? And of course, that level of stress rising in that moment as well. So we set up Stress Matters very much to kind of try and answer that problem and say, look, how can we have an industry that is all about deadlines and is all about over servicing? Realistically, a lot of us are yes people. So how do we balance that with balancing mental health and well-being of the people in the industry? And again, we started looking at the people in the industry, and then it kind of quickly moved to also all the attendees of our events as well. So how could we design events that what I refer to as mentally safe, and also consider that in terms of the attendees, but our crew and our teams and all of our stakeholders as well, because we all have different requirements. So from my side, you know, this has been something that I've been very passionate about for a long time, and been kind of banging that drum for a really long time. And of course, I don't need to spell it out, but of course, the last 15 months has been a bit of a shocker for most people's mental health and well-being. all in different experiences. Everybody's had their own journey. It's the thought that depression has doubled in adults over the course of the pandemic. So where mental health, was something that I was worried about in terms of poor mental health of people in our industry, it's something now I'm very worried about. So not only are, we in an industry that's not really fully reopening yet, and therefore there's all of the impact of that in terms of financial and security and all of those sides. It's also that now re-engaging back into an in-person event environment and how we might feel about that. So we've now got to think about not only how people are generally feeling on a day-to-day basis in terms of what's been happening in their world for the last year and a half and what their new normal and their kind of accepted level of working is, versus put us into an in-person event and the potential level of anxiety that might kind of come along with that. And I think we have a responsibility as event organisers, as venues, as suppliers, to really put that at the heart of everything we do. And Sarah mentioned there, it's very much part of safety. It is part of health and safety. For me, this is a great opportunity for the industry to, what I would refer to as reset rather than restart. I think we need to be resetting now in terms of everything to do with health and safety and sustainability and people's side of sustainability. And of course, Andrew's going to go more into the wider context of that. But for me, if we want our industry to keep attracting good talent and to retain that talent, we need to have an environment where people aren't leaving because they're finding it too stressful. So we need to be looking at how we can reset our approach to work and our approach to events in a more mentally safe way. We are all doing as much as we can in terms of physical safety and doing things like Sarah's course, looking at all the kind of COVID safety measures we need to put in place. And I want to sit here and say we need to be putting mental safety on that agenda as well. We need mental safety in our risk assessments. We need to be considering what we can be doing for our attendees and for our team. And exactly like Sarah was saying in terms of physical safety, it's not about big changes. It's not about doing things dramatically different for the sake of doing them. For me, us considering mental safety and well-being is all about little tweaks. It's all about communication. It's all about understanding and empathy and having connection with your audience and with your team and making small little changes to show people that you understand and that you are supporting them. So we do things like mental health first aider training, for example. One of the things that we're advocating is that for every event, whether or not hybrid, in person, and even virtual, that you have mental health first aiders available, people that are trained to support somebody if they are feeling unwell in a mental health capacity and how to support somebody in a crisis. And I think this should be just part of the way we operate in events. I think we basically have something we refer to as hashtag MHFA every event. And this is something we were talking about pre-pandemic, but even more important now that, I would like us to all be able to go to an event either as an attendee or as a member of the team and feel safe in terms of our mental safety. So I would absolutely expect there to be physical first aiders and somebody have the relevant training. I want there to be people that have the training in terms of mental safety at our events as well. And these are all small things that I think will add up to people feeling a lot happier about that industry reopening and about how actually they might want to come back. We've got team members that might feel anxious about the idea of going on public transport. It might feel anxious about being in big environments and big crowds. How are we supporting them? And the same with the attendees. If you're in an organization, you're mandating that your team need to attend your in-person event. How is that going to impact their mental health? How can we encourage them to come to an event where they might be feeling a little bit anxious? So thinking really carefully about designing and delivering these kind of mentally safe events and how you can make those little tweaks and changes just to make sure that you are looking out for people. And at the same time, looking out for your staff, as I said. So it's looking out for your attendees and making sure they're getting the best experience they physically can, but really, really thinking about the fact that your team and you, I'm sure as well, have been through an absolute shocker of a year and a half for all of our personal reasons that have meant that it's been an absolute roller coaster. And so hopefully many of you, it has been a good thing, but there is undoubtedly going to have been bad points across the last year and a half as well. And how do we acknowledge that and address that and support every single team member in a way that means we're going to get the best out of them? Because we know the data shows that if you have solid well-being, if you have a positive kind of mental health in your team, it has an impact on their productivity, it has an impact on their profitability, and therefore it is good business sense to have well-being as part of your kind of core agenda in terms of the way you're looking after your staff.
Incredible.
That give you insight and overview.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. And in a similar vein, I've also during lockdown, I've trained to be a mental health first aider. So we are, I suppose, fortunate on this call that we have 2 mental health first aiders on the call. I'm not sure if there's anybody else, but yeah, I'm a big advocate for mental well-being being part and parcel of events. Like you say, everyone is going to be coming out of this differently. I'm still on furlough from my day job at the Lowry in Salford Keys, so that's been very anxious for me, but looking after your mental health, I've taken up yoga as my pursuit to try and help deal with that. Each of us will deal with it in different ways, and I think it's important that it's really at the top of that agenda. So thank you, Laura, for that, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your information. And again, I would say look at Stress Matters website and see the courses that Laura offers that can really help you and support you moving forward. So moving on, thank you, Laura. To Andrew now, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you very much. And what a great presentation from Laura. I've been in travel and events for 20 years as well. Although I started events, working in events about 10 years ago. And I still remember the first event I went to participate in, or just to watch it really as in the new company, when it was in Barcelona, 2,000 delegates. I think it's the most stressful thing I've ever been to. I wasn't actually doing the thing, but the team who were, one of the guys was there with the customer with their hands about to go around their neck because they were worried about something. So this is a very, very stressful industry, having worked in a few of them. So I can really identify with that from Laura. So anyway, my name's Andrew Perolls, and I'm the founder and CEO of Greengage, Travel and Event Solutions. And I'm going to attempt something dangerous, which is to share my screen and show a few slides. We'll see if it works, shall we? Do you think it might work? I'll share the screen.
So bear with me, Andrew, I've just made you co-host, so you should be able to do that now.
Okay. Okay. So just let's see if anybody can see anything. Can you actually?
Yep, I can confirm I can see that.
Okay. Amazing. Right. Okay. Brilliant. So did anybody see the G7 conference in Cornwall last weekend? If you did, I don't know what your memories were from that, whether it was seeing Wilfred Johnson or the amazing beach. But, one of the big things about that conference was that climate change and the challenges to nature were really huge issues that were main agenda topics. And they're even assisted by David Attenborough to try and ram the message home. So having seen that, these are worrying times, but I think the resulting upsurge of interest in sustainability and the concept of reaching carbon net zero by 2050 also really provide a positive opportunity for hotels, conference venues and event organisers. Certainly Carbis Bay Hotel, which was a G7 venue, a very eco-friendly property, is definitely going to reap the benefits of that publicity. So in this short session, I'm just going to talk about the challenge and the opportunity as well, and explain how Greengage is involved and can help you as venues and events really stage a comeback and hopefully build back greener at the same time. So there's our friends at the G7. And this is what they were talking about, really. 2021, this is what we're faced with. Really, global climate that's overheating due to greenhouse gas emissions, huge pressure on global ecosystems like rivers and oceans, mountains of plastic polluting land and sea, and threats to natural resources as well, like the Amazon rainforest. So this perfect storm, really, of global challenges is focusing the minds, I think, of nations, companies, and consumers as well, as everyone realizes that doing nothing about it is not any longer an option. And actually, I have to say, the UK government, they've set the pace with a legally binding declaration for the UK to be carbon zero by 2050. And in the meantime, reducing carbon emissions by 68% by 2030. They're huge asks, and they won't just happen. But I think, you know, the opportunity in this industry is to contribute by offering sustainably focused hotels and green venues as well, with green events, because that's definitely what clients will be looking for. And we did our own survey. I'd be interested to see what we see at the end of the session today. But our own survey, we found 81% of meeting bookers and travel managers seeing sustainability as a real priority this year. So through our corporate consulting, we are definitely seeing companies reviewing their whole supply chain from a green perspective, and really going as far as mandating that accommodation and conferences must be booked in hotels or venues that have green credentials. So, you know, I think the great thing is that buying or booking green is actually seen as something that's quite cool. You know, when you look at brands like Lush or IKEA or Innocent Drinks, you know, they're all getting extra business as a result of having a sustainable policy. And I think the same goes for hotel and conference venues. And I picked a couple here. Why Boston Lakes in Cambridge, the one on the left, Treehouse Hotel in London, and they have a real competitive edge through being sustainable, having that approach, which means they're retaining clients and winning new ones as well. So that's really why I set up Greengage. It was to provide support and a means of green accreditation to corporate meetings, travel and accommodation sectors. So advice on what to do if you book meetings or if you have conference venue. Well, I'd say just make sure sustainability is on your agenda. If you're someone who has the job of venue finding, then make sure you look for evidence of green practice in your choice of property. If you're an event organizer, be on trend by giving your conference a sustainable feel. And actually, we have produced a Greengage meetings guide with top tips on what you can do. So we're very happy to share a link to that after this. If you're a hotel or venue, don't let others take your business because you're not prepared. And we can certainly help you be more sustainable, to stand out with a competitive edge and even to save money as well. I think our aim is to try and make it as simple as possible. So we came up with this. It's Greengage EcoSmart, a green accreditation program. And we're really pleased. It's creating a really fast growing network of sustainable accredited hotels and venues in the UK. So what it's about really is working with properties to assess what's in place and identify any gaps. And we'll look at things like you can see here on the left-hand side, everything from reducing energy consumption to stopping plastic use, buying green supplies and so on. And so what we're really about is trying to help plug any gaps and then provide certification from bronze to platinum level, depending on how far you get. So I think our principle is that our accreditation needs to be more than just sort of handing over a certificate. That's fine, but what we wanted to do was actively work with sort of ongoing support and advice, and then the potential for everyone to then move up a level at any time as you progress, because really sustainability is more a journey rather than a destination. So the great thing is that we do work a lot with companies who book meetings, event agencies, travel management companies, and venue finding agencies, and they're looking for this type of property, and of course we can highlight them to them and help generate business for those venues. We do have a principle which is keep things simple, and we know people don't have a lot of money these days, so keep it cost effective. So our accreditation, it's all really done online through a simple survey. It's easy to complete. You don't have to have a degree in environmental studies. And you know, I think the experience is that you can be more eco-friendly by taking actions that are often cost little or sometimes nothing, or in fact, sometimes you can make changes which save money. So please forgive the advert, but what we do is we offer a package, £199 a year, and for that, what we try to do is this active support. So we carry out accreditation, and then we provide certification, the marketing that goes with that. We help to develop the eco proposition to the next level. We love supporting with social media, and through our other partners like event agencies, try to drive business through you as well. We have a venue directory, and we also are very keen that we are able to share as much knowledge and enable as much networking as possible. And so therefore we've got a knowledge hub which we constantly update to save people having to look things up themselves. You can also attend our quarterly virtual conference. We had that last week. That was really good. We always have properties involved in that, explaining what they do. And finally, we have green products and services as part of this whole ecosystem, so that hotels who need to find a way that you buy green coffee cups to having a moss roof, we can help do that as well. So it's all for less than the price of a takeaway cup of coffee a week. It's £199. It's you can even pay monthly as well. So I do hope, whether or not you work with us or not, we do hope that you can kind of bounce back greener. If you'd like to talk to us, please do get in contact. But you know, the good thing is that because I'm spending a lot of time looking around venues at the moment, there's a real buzz as things are coming back. I've certainly seen some delays in events which were going to be in July, now September, and a lot of evidence that it's seen now a little bit as 2022. That's when it's going to be a real bounce back. But you know, the thing that I'm really looking forward to is actually seeing and being in a live event. It's like so exciting to imagine that happening. So I think, you know, we're on the pathway now, and looking forward to seeing how everybody responds to that in the best way. So thank you very much for that, and back to Mathew.
Thank you, Andrew. If you wouldn't mind just unsharing your screen for me, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that you said, I kind of would reiterate. What we've done as a organisation on our directory is to add into the features and facilities that whether or not the venue has an environmental policy as part of their venue. So we've added that kind of to ours, because again, we agree. I've had a quick look at the poll as well. 73% saying, you know, that it's of high importance, so either a 4 or a 5 mark on that. So I think that probably reiterates with a lot of what you're thinking and kind of polling has been as well, Andrew. So thank you very much for that. And as you said, you know, there's certain initiatives that you can take in terms of environmental that will actually probably save you easily the £200 that Andrew is charging for getting involved with the EcoSmart system. So, so yeah, absolutely. If you just checking that you are still on screen share, if you want.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
There we go, no problem at all.
Apologies.
Not a problem at all. So thank you very much for that. And so on to our final speaker for today, last but no means least, Joan.
Well, first of all, hi everybody. Now I'm conscious of time. So Mathew, I'm going to keep mine really short and sweet because I think it's more important that all of your guests have time for questions and discussion. And I've picked out two themes that have come out from Sarah and Laura and Andrew's presentation. So my name is Joan Lind. I'm the Managing Director and founder of Try Booking in the UK. We're almost 7 years old. And what we are is a piece of technology that's known, hopefully to some of you, as a SaaS, which is software as a service. So I work in the cloud and I work on events because what we do is enable any size or type of event or venue to manage online registrations, bookings, etc. really, really easily and simply. So that's what we do. In a nutshell, we're a UK alternative to Eventbrite. So we're British and all that jazz. However, the two themes I want to pick up on, given that there's a mix of event planners and venues on the call, is how can technology help with all of this? Well, I think there's two areas, and Sarah and Laura both touched on it hugely, and that is about creativity. So the way that we come out of lockdown is not going to be the way we were in it, and also confidence. So it doesn't matter what Boris stands up and tells us, it's how we feel. And it could be due to our attitudes, it could be due to our own health, it could be due to our families. So there's two areas I really want to touch upon, and that is how we are all going to have to be much more creative. And one of the joys of running Try Booking is we see this a lot and we have these discussions a lot. And prior to launching Try Booking, I spent more than 20 years, I'm older than a lot of you put together. I ran global advertising agencies. So in London, I launched the BT It's Good to Talk campaign and ran that for 5 years with an agency called Abbott Mead Vickers. And then I went out to Sydney for over 10 years and was an executive at M&C Saatchi with Qantas and all sorts. I've worked in that world of idea generation and creativity. And the bit I really want to touch upon is when people come back to events, be they outdoor or be they indoor, the way that you can approach them from a creative point of view is going to give them that confidence. So some of the things that we're already seeing is venues who wouldn't normally have used their outdoor areas, particularly hotels, getting much more creative with that, but also indoor, giving people the confidence and the space. And that's where technology can really help you, because platforms like Try Booking enable you to do really creative table planning, seating plan, socially distanced blocking of seats. So if you're in an auditorium type setup for a business event, then you're going to have a lunch or a dinner. Your guests, when do people come to a business event and actually choose their seat? They don't. They normally get ushered in. There might be a table plan. So it's about using technology to help you manage that. And that's what we are seeing a lot of at Try Booking. Also time slotting. You know, wedding fairs, for example, people just open the doors and you walk in. Well, no more. If I'm turning up with my, maybe sickly mother-in-law and my sickly mother, I want to know that I'm going to be surrounded by not lots of people. So you can use technology to really manage people through your event and give them a really rich experience, and often, and Laura touched upon this, a more intimate experience than we've had before. And this also translates to food. So we all go to these lovely business events and we all have these lovely buffets. Well, it doesn't matter what the restrictions say. I'm not sure, back to Sarah's point about handshaking, people are going to want buffets again. And we've all known those gorgeous canopy buffets where we get our bowls of curry and our bowls of salad. Well, again, you can use technology to get really creative and give confidence in the food offerings. You can easily get people to choose from your menu before they arrive, and then you give them their own little bespoke box of food that they've ordered before they arrived. All of this stuff is really easy to do with platforms like Try Booking. So it's about getting creative, and also about giving confidence where people are going to be standing, sitting, what they're going to be eating, and letting all those really more personal moments. And the personal moments at events are often the things that are barriers. As Andrew touched upon, the overwhelming of walking into a space with 2,000 people. and knowing that they're going to be able to know where they're sitting, what table they're sitting at, who they're sitting with, or what area of the auditorium they're going to be sitting in, and knowing that there's going to be free seats on either side of them. All of those kind of things are going to be much more pertinent. So that's what I'm having conversations a lot with all of our clients, is about getting much more creative and giving the delegates a much more insightful understanding of what the experience is going to be when they arrive at that event or that venue.
Brilliant, thanks Jane, that's fantastic. And for everyone, obviously you all booked today's, to attend today on Try Booking, so hopefully you found it nice and simple, as because certainly for me, creating it was nice and simple as well. So I love the system and the platform, so it's great. And having looked and delved deeper in as well, I can tell you there's lots of things that that Try Booking can do. So have a look is what I'd say on that. Well, thank you everybody for the presentations. This is now an opportunity if anyone has any questions for the panel that they would like to ask. Not seen anything in the chat. But has anyone got anything at all?
I did have a question, if possible, for Sarah.
Go for it.
Firstly, thank you so much, because that was really, really helpful, and there was information that I wasn't aware of. I was just wondering if there is like a written version that confirms maximum numbers and maximum capacities at the moment anywhere on the government website, because I've really struggled to find anything.
Yes, you need the working safely during coronavirus, visitor economy. I'll put a link up.
That'd be great.
That's going to be a lot easier than me navigating you to it. And then it's there's a section on business events.
Okay.
And it's in managing operations, which is section 2, and you're looking for 2.4. So I'll put the link to the correct section in the chat for you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Welcome.
Yeah, I was going to try and say the actual URL, but it's way too long. Fab. Anybody else with any questions for the panel? No? Final opportunity. Okay, I'll have a quick look at, I'll end the poll now and have a quick look at what you were all saying. So in terms of kind of what your biggest worries are at the moment, uncertainty is pretty high at 42%, and business, obviously, in terms of probably business levels and kind of income costs, etc., is the highest at 50%. So two of the biggest worries we have. Stress levels, probably higher than I thought, actually, to be honest. So kind of we've got about 50% at level 3 and 33% at level 4 and only 17% at level 2. So nothing at the top end, which is probably good. Nothing at the bottom end, which is probably bad. So fairly in the middle on that. Sustainability, yes, again, like I said in previously, 73%. Actually, yeah, 75%, sorry, now when I was looking at it before. So again, we all see that as positive. And obviously Team Live has won by 60% compared to 40% for Team Hybrid. It's, and as expected, no one was Team Virtual. I guess we are all fed up of virtual, aren't we? So thank you for everybody who attended today. I hope you found that beneficial.